Good evening and welcome. I'm Adele Gauthier from Breast Cancer Foundation, and tonight we're talking about breast cancer and younger women. Before we get started, some housekeeping. If you have any technical issues, you can type details of your problem in the chat box at the bottom left of your screen, and one of our team will get in touch to help you. Or you can call the number there and enter the passcode to get some help. If you have sound problems, you might prefer to listen on your phone while watching on your computer. You can see instructions how to do that at the bottom of your screen. You can use the same chat box during the webinar to ask questions, which we'll get to later, and you can actually also chat to other people who are attending the webinar. Don't worry about missing out on valuable information while you're chatting. The webinar is being recorded and it will all be available on our website in the next few days. So tonight we're talking about breast cancer and younger women. While maybe you're as young as you feel, we do often hear from women who are aged maybe under 40 at the time of diagnosis that some of their concerns are a bit different from older people. Whether that's around relationships or fertility, maybe taking a career break at an earlier stage, or simply knowing fewer people who are going through the same thing, it just feels different. So regardless of your actual age, if any of those things are issues for you, hopefully our panel can help you tonight. We have three panellists we're going to share with you. First up, we have Maddie Cooper, then HR Manager and Coach Jude Jameson, and Counsellor Claire Thompson. First, we're going to hear from Maddie, who was diagnosed with breast cancer in her late 20s. Maddie, that diagnosis changed just about every aspect of your life.
Absolutely, yes.
Tell us what happened and where you are now.
Yeah, sure. All right. So it's almost 4 years ago now, when I had just turned 27, when I went to go and see my doctor for a general checkup before I was supposed to be going overseas on a belated honeymoon. And that is when she noticed the lump in my right breast. There was no real concern to begin with because being a young woman, it was most likely a benign fibroadenoma. So after monitoring it for a month, I went in for a biopsy, just to double check. Wasn't expecting anything was going to be wrong. And then received a phone call the following morning, which was the start of an absolute roller coaster ride and flipped my world upside down. And really did change my life forever. So I was diagnosed with an aggressive grade 3 ductal carcinoma with calcification in the right breast, and never made it on my honeymoon. Instead, within 2 weeks and what felt like 100 appointments, I was scheduled for a 7-hour surgery in which they removed my full breast and reconstructed it with an implant and the latissimus dorsi muscle from my back. And after recovering from surgery, I went through a very challenging and exhausting 8 courses of chemotherapy over a 6-month period and a year of Herceptin for HER2 positive breast cancer, and currently on a 5-year hormone treatment plan as well. I was also in the grey area for radiotherapy, but I decided against that one. So it really put relationships, finances, career, friendships, all of that to the test. Accepting what had happened to me was super tough, I'm not going to lie. At the time, I felt like I was in the prime of my life with so much potential and opportunity. I was with my ex-husband at the time, and the whole ordeal put a lot of pressure on our relationship in a number of ways. So physically was huge. For a long time, I did feel very unattractive, not the way a young woman was supposed to look, looking in the mirror and seeing a pale, sickly reflection with no hair, a massive scar across my back, and an implant where my breast had once been, really was the hardest psychological thing I had ever had to deal with. And then there was fatigue, which for me was the hardest side effect, just having a complete lack of energy. I had terrible fatigue during and for many months post-chemo. I had always been an active, busy, social, career-driven person before, and I wanted to, still do all of those things, but I just physically couldn't. Some days when chemo was really tough, an achievement that day would be just to get up and have a shower. So it really did flip from, yep, I'm doing everything to, I can't. My energy really was zapped up really quickly, and it took me over a year post-chemo before I started feeling more like myself again. Then financially as well, so my ex-partner was freelancing in the film industry at the time and took a full-time job so that we could, pay the bills and manage that aspect of our lives. We still did feel a lot of pressure making ends meet and being able to save for the future because I wasn't working or I was working very irregularly, just doing what I could. And also I had the added uncertainty of what was going to happen to my health and what that meant financially too. Fortunately though, I had set myself up with health insurance the year before I got diagnosed, and so it was a blessing in disguise and has been absolutely helpful. Then hormone therapy has been another challenge. I'm 3.5 years through a 5-year treatment plan at the moment on Leucrin and exemestane. So that not only questions my future fertility, but has also thrown my body into a menopausal state, which has its own array of challenges. The suppression of estrogen, along with the post-traumatic stress I was dealing with early on in my journey, created a whole number of side effects with the exhaustion, the hot flushes, mood swings, episodes of depression, sleeplessness, atrophy, overactive bladder problems. And with all of this going on, I really struggled being intimate with my partner, and that made things even more complicated because that was, the relationship which I was really clinging on to at that point in time. Our relationship unfortunately came to an end at the start of 2016. We were both just emotionally exhausted and could no longer support each other the way that we needed to. It also became clear that our focus and priorities in life really started to differ. But despite all of that, was strong and supportive networks with family and friends, which really did help me get through. And I found that these relationships with friends and family blossomed and did become more meaningful throughout the journey as well. I also now live in Wellington with my new partner of 1.5 years, and he's incredibly supportive and admirational of my journey and loves me inside and out. So it's, you can find new relationships and, these things, just be yourself, and these things do come up. So, I really am blessed. And then in terms of life changes, that's been a big deal for me as well. For me to survive the journey I was on, I had to find a place of peace, acceptance, and gratitude within myself. It took a huge amount of self-discipline, patience, and cultivating positive attitude for me to start letting go of what I thought my future should look like, related to, physical appearance and the possibility of recurrence. It was before my diagnosis that I had so many expectations which I had set upon myself, which made life stressful. And it was my diagnosis which opened my eyes to what was actually important in life. And I realized that making lifestyle changes was paramount to my healing journey. Even last year, I struggled severely with fatigue. I was trying to work full-time, but my body just wasn't ready for that. And that's 3.5 years down the track post-chemo. I was still operating from very limited reserves, and I found myself on the couch after work and in the weekends just trying to recover. And to me, I'm like, this really isn't life. This isn't living. So I finally decided to make a real life change, which meant a career change as well. So I quit my job pre-Christmas and booked myself to do my yoga teacher training in the Coromandel. And that was an absolutely magical experience and just what I needed for both mind and body. Yoga, meditation, and mindfulness have really been havens for me when times have been tough. And if it weren't for getting sick in the first place, I would never have experienced yoga on such a deep physical and emotional healing level. I would never have been introduced to Buddhism, which is a philosophy of living with kindness, compassion, and wisdom, and the many inspiring and amazing people that I have met along the way as well. I think the journey has definitely made me a better person and has opened my eyes up in ways that I couldn't see before. So from what I have experienced and learnt on my journey, I'd like to offer a few words of advice. I absolutely encourage women of every age to become more aware of your whole physical body, including your breasts, but also your state of mind, because it is all interconnected. You may be familiar with the quote from Buddha, "As we think, so we become." And to me, having a positive mindset goes such a long way for a positive outcome physically as well. What has been a key area for me has been a regular self-care practice. So whether that be your 30 minutes of meditation or yoga or even a mindful walk a few times a week, it's all about creating these long-term beneficial changes over time. Nothing is a quick fix. And on that note, never try and do everything at once, and don't believe everything you hear or read on the internet. It really does get all too overwhelming, and then you're much more likely to give up, because I've been there and I've done it and I've been like, no, can't do it. So it's just adding on slowly when you're ready. It's finding what works for you and what nourishes your own individual needs. Decreasing what causes anxiety and stress and tension in your life, and inviting in what makes you happy and healthy and passionate. One thing I have learned about managing side effects of treatment is to never give up. There are always alternative practices and therapies out there, and always people willing to help. It just takes a bit of time and perseverance. So I truly believe that a healthy mind is just as important as a healthy body. And for me, introducing practices like the yoga, meditation, and mindfulness have been incredibly beneficial on my journey, and also for me to continue being a survivor. So I feel like my purpose is to continue to spread these messages and create awareness about all of this, and do what I can to help create positive change for both mind and body in other people at any stage at life, because it can and does happen to anyone.
Wow, that's great, Maddie. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I think everyone will have found that really inspiring and encouraging to listen to. Now we're going to hear from Judith Jamieson. Judith has had lots of senior roles in HR, human resources management, and now spends much of her time coaching people and dealing with work-related issues. Judith, what advice would you have for someone who's juggling work with a breast cancer diagnosis?
Thanks, Adele, and thank you for that really powerful story, Maddie, and what you were dealing with. And you pointed and touched on a few things in terms of your work and career. So just building on that, just from my experience in working with employees that have been diagnosed with cancer, not just breast cancer, but all sorts of cancer, I was thinking there are just a few pointers that I could share with you, probably in 3 phases, I guess. The phase of when you get diagnosed and you have to go through that process of telling people, then the phase of what you do as you go on to treatment, and then if you've been away from work or working in a different way and you want to return to the way that you were working before. So just going to run through a few pointers on this that may be helpful. Of course, as Maddie says, this is an incredibly overwhelming and confusing time, and I think on diagnosis it's probably not easy to share what's happened to you. Confusing thoughts, overwhelmed by information. You've got to tell family and friends. So how do you tell your workmates? So first question I think is, how do I tell my boss? So I would encourage people, if they've got a good relationship with their manager, to tell them as early as they possibly can, and give them as much information as you know at that time. Typically, our organisations are very compassionate about these issues and will wrap around and support you. Tell your boss directly. Make a time with them when you feel comfortable to sit down and have that chat. Also, if there's an HR department, human resources department in your organisation, they're there to help as well. When it comes to co-workers, what I've seen mostly is people tend to want to just talk to a few close co-workers rather than talk any more than that, and I think that works quite well. You want the people around you in your team to support you. They'll be noticing changes in you. So just rely on a few trusted co-workers. Don't worry about anybody else. Other people will let others know if necessary, and if you allow that. Have a think about what you want to share and how much you want to share. I think that's important as well, because depending on your diagnosis, different things for different people. Then the next question that comes to mind is, what am I entitled to? What can I expect from my organisation as I go through this change in my life? Well, the first thing is to check your contract. So you mostly will be on, imagine, individual employment contracts. So check your contract or your collective agreement if you're on a union contract, just so you understand what basically your agreement with the organisation is. You have a right to privacy. You don't have to tell your organisation, but as I said before, I think to get that support you need and to discuss your options, I think it's useful to share as much as possible. You're entitled to your sick leave, and the minimum standards of sick leave in New Zealand are 5 days, but a lot of organisations offer more than that. You can use your holiday pay to pull out, to add to, your sick leave. And also you can request unpaid leave. Now, unfortunately, in New Zealand, there isn't a condition to say that employers have to give you unpaid leave, but I think most employers are very compassionate, and where they can, where it's in their realm for doing it, I've typically seen most employers provide unpaid leave if necessary. Insurances, as Maddie mentioned, if you've got health insurance, obviously through the organisation, make sure you use that. And just get some clear ideas of what you're entitled to in terms of benefits that the organisation might offer, like life insurance, etc. Then you might be thinking, okay, so now I know my treatment plan, now I know what I might be expecting in terms of being able to or not to have work initially anyway. You might want to start thinking about flexible work arrangements. So you're entitled to ask your employer for flexible working, and they need to consider that under the latest legislation. So think about what flexible working arrangements might be, make a plan, discuss it with your employer, put it in writing, and they will talk with you about what flexible options. Work is a really good diversion. A lot of cancer people I've talked to, they actually like to continue work even though they are being treated. However, as Maddie said, it's very different for her. She was really exhausted and tired, but for others it might not be that way. So be open to the journey as you move forward. What's reasonable to expect? Well, I think reasonable employers act reasonably. They can be very compassionate, but making a plan and being a little bit in charge, if you can find that time just to sit down, maybe get support people around you so that you can make that plan. And ask for the small things, not just the big things, the holiday pay. Ask for the car park close to the door. Ask for things like that that would just make your life. Ask for a better seating arrangements or whatever that's going to make you more comfortable. What about the money side of things and the legal side of things? Well, that's obviously a really huge consideration. Once you've used up all your leave and if the organisation isn't able to help you anymore, you need to make a plan around financials and know what your situation is with your family. It's a really tough one, but again, there's lots of people like the Citizen Advice Bureau that can really help you with thoughts and ideas on that. Know your rights under the Employment Relations Act. And so that you can access what you're entitled to. Lots of information on websites around that. So what about during leave then? So what should I do while I'm away of work? So share details of your treatment with your boss and HR so that they know. You don't have to share how you're feeling or anything, but just share those details of treatment so they know what potentially you're going to be able to do in terms of work. If you are going to be completely away from work and the organisation is supporting you in that, keep in touch. I think that's really important. Don't let the relationship, just a few emails, maybe stay on the social media at work or just keep in contact with your workmate. Start to think about, at the right time, a return to work plan, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Thinking about what you want to do, whether you want to come back to work full-time or part-time. I'll touch on that in a minute. At work, what assistance could I access? Well, obviously HR are there to support your boss, hopefully, and your co-workers will be there rallying around you. But also, a lot of organisations these days have an employee assistance program, which is a wonderful program where you can access counselling and advice from experts within the field of counselling. And I would thoroughly recommend, a lot of employers I've worked with and myself have used employee assistance programs just to help us through those critical incidents that happen in life. But most of all, during leave, if you're away from work and you're not doing any part-time work, just keep in touch. Finally, returning to work. And I think Maddie's story is a very inspirational story because you might not want to return to work. It's a life-changing event. You know, your values might have completely changed. So I think it's really important to just really be aware of what is more important to you now. What are your perspectives? What's changed? What are your goals? Have your values shifted? Are you thinking about a new life and a new way of living after all your treatment? But there are returning to work options, flexible options, as we talked about before, in terms of stepping up. So you may have, gone down to maybe 1, 2, 3 days a week, and then you might want to build up to a full-time job. That may be over a 6-month period, 12-month period, whatever your employer and you can work on. Again, making a plan around that so that you feel comfortable and it's agreed with your employer. And if you do want to have a change, I think Maddie's inspiration there is thinking about what really matters to you, and then retraining, as you said, going and doing that yoga training, or thinking about the new skills that you want to build on, because once you've been through a life-changing event like this, you could have some really interesting new perspectives around resilience and life skills that you've got, the tenacity that you've built to go through this, the organisation skills you've built to deal with all that treatment and all those things. So you've got some really new, interesting skills that you might want to build on if you decide you want to make a change. And put those on your CV if you're looking to get another job, or thinking about talking to new employers or new industries that you want to work in. You can build on those experiences that you've got. Don't think that your time away from work has been lost time. You've probably built some really good new perspectives and some really good skills. So think about the things that are available to you, and really encourage you to keep in touch with your employer and know what your entitlements are. So that's my key practical points. I hope they've been helpful.
Thank you, Jess. That I think has been super helpful. Thank you very much for that. Now we're going to hear from Claire Thompson. She's a counsellor who helps people dealing with all kinds of life-changing events, not just cancer. Claire, what are some of the common emotional and relationship aspects of being diagnosed with cancer, in particular breast cancer, but I guess any cancer, perhaps at any age? So, of course, tonight we're really focusing on younger women.
Okay, thank you, Adele. I'd like to speak firstly around body image. So that's obviously something that you may feel as though your self-confidence has decreased with your diagnosis, and also your self-worth. A mastectomy may threaten your sense of self-worth and also sometimes desirability, and may lead to an avoidance of sexual relationships, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. You could feel out of touch with your body, as though your body has let you down, and some women do actually find that they become angry with their own body. You may also start comparing yourself to others more, just when you're out and about and you see other women, you may be judging and comparing yourself. You could also be concerned with weight gain following your treatment. So those are just a few of the issues that could be bothering you. Obviously, there are many more. Looking on the positive side, some women do view their battle scars as a sign of survival. And you need to find ways to learn to feel comfortable with your body again. And exercise is one key way, and as Maddie has shared there, the what I call the gentle, relaxing exercises such as yoga and Tai Chi are really good starting points. Many women find that they try different makeups, different sessions and eyebrow tattoos and things like that. You could also join a support group. That could be face-to-face or possibly online, and whatever you're comfortable with. Some people prefer feeling part of a group, but if you don't, then obviously you can access a counsellor and talk one-on-one around what's concerning you at the time, and that can help you reframe your thoughts around how you feel about yourself and your body. But generally just do things that help you feel good, whatever they may be. So looking at managing relationships. So our friendships can be affected when we're diagnosed with any condition. They can have a big impact on relationships with family, friends, and colleagues, and also our loved ones. Some won't know how to respond or what to say, and that's very, very common. And a tip there is to let people know what they can do, how they can help you, and even what to talk about if you're catching up or meeting for coffee or something like that. People don't know, so it's okay to let them know. But sometimes you may not know what help or support that you may need, and that's okay too. Some friends around you may bring their own experience of cancer into your friendship, and it may be not their own personal diagnosis of cancer, but it may be they've had a family member, a grandparent, parent, someone close to them who's experienced cancer themselves, and that person can bring what's happened to that family member into your friendship. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so looking at managing your relationship with your partner. So how a diagnosis affects your relationship can depend upon many things, and one of those is your individual personalities and just who and how you things, and one of those is your individual personalities and just who and how you are. It can depend on your previous life experiences, what you've experienced and been through before, and also how long you've been together can be a key point in how you move through your diagnosis and treatment together. Another key point is how well you communicate together, and this can quite often be how well you communicated or not prior to your diagnosis. And also looking at how was your relationship before your diagnosis. So just being aware of that. And it's also being aware of how your diagnosis may affect your partner, which will obviously then impact on you and your relationship. It's likely that your partner will feel distressed and very anxious, and they may present this in different ways. But it is good to talk openly about your fears and what impact the cancer has on you both. And talking together, you need to make time. It's making a time to sit and talk together, and maybe even schedule an appointment or time with each other rather than just brushing it under the carpet. Your partner may need to access their own counselling and support for what they're going through, managing their own fears and anxieties and worries for you. And couples counselling can help you both talk together and teach you strategies around how to communicate and share your worries. If you're single, it can be difficult if you're used to being independent or living alone. It can be difficult to cope on your own with no one at home to talk to and really give you a sense of isolation. Many reach out to family members or friends. That isn't always possible if family members may live some distance away. And that's again where a support group or online support group can be very useful. Again, it's just what you're comfortable with. So looking at dating and new relationships. If you aren't in a relationship, you may worry about starting to date again. If you do meet someone, you may worry about when to tell them and how to tell a new partner. You may also worry about how someone may react to the physical effects of your cancer treatment. All those worries are natural, but I'd say with being intimate with a new partner and timing, you'll know what fits right with you. It's natural to worry and about their reaction. So there is no set answer of when to tell a potential new partner. You'll just know when that time is right for you. Before being intimate for the first time, it can be helpful to discuss with them first what you've been through and what to expect with your survival scars. Everyone is different and moves at their own pace, and it's doing what's comfortable for you and using that good gut intuition. So if we look at how to talk to your children, if any of you have children, or even nieces and nephews, it can be challenging to talk to children, and children at different ages can react differently, and that will, like I say, depend on their age, their temperament and their individual little personalities, their stage of development, and also how their relationship is with you. So for children around 3 to 5 years, they won't really understand the concept of illness, but they will pick up on tensions. They will pick up on adults talking in low voices and not sharing what's being said. And this can create more anxiety. So you may notice they become more clingy, more cuddly, not want to let you out of their sight. So it's good to use a doll or a teddy bear or something like that to explain your illness and where it is on your body in their language. And it's also important, especially for younger children, to keep their normal everyday routine. And there's a really useful book that is available online called Mummy's Lump. And that's a really good resource to get hold of to work through with younger children and talk. So for children 6 to 12 years, often they have fears that they may not mention to you. They may worry that you're going to die. You may see changes in their schoolwork and their general behaviour. And again, they're more likely to become more clingy and cuddly. So again, use books and resources to work through with them. Let them know it's okay to enjoy themselves and it's still okay for them to be happy and to have fun. Talking to your teenager, again, as we know, teenagers go through their stages and can react very differently to each other. They may be reluctant to talk. They may find it hard to show you how they feel. They may want to help out and become almost over-caring and taking on burden themselves. Or conversely, they may want to have their own independence, be out of their house and spend time with their friends as they normally would. To help them see that talking about their feelings is a positive thing, you can help them role model that. You can help role model that by showing your feelings. And try and ensure that they keep up with their normal friendships and activities and sports and things like that, keeping them in their normal routine. So just to look at anxiety, just following on from Maddie's great tips there, so I totally concur. Using the relaxing type exercises, so breathing is the #1 best thing that you can do for anxiety. Most of us don't breathe properly, and just learning to take a deep breath, a full big belly breath, and not using the top part here in our chest. Breathe is a very good app that you can download And that's where the yoga, the Tai Chi, the Qigong is fantastic for breathing, as well as helping with the mind and the body and the soul. Talking through things, obviously, with a professional or a friend can help, and also writing down your feelings, like journaling or writing a diary. And as I said before, if you can exercise, that's a really good thing for you to do, and it may be just starting off with something simple like Tai Chi. And I think we should all do that practice every day of yoga or Tai Chi, and I'm sure Maddie would concur there. So break things down into smaller tasks. Things can become overwhelming. Break them down, write lists, and it may be just achieve one thing today, or write a list of 3 things and just keep it simple. And whatever you're feeling at the time, it may be that anxiety and that tension, just remember that it will pass and it won't be with you forever. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Claire. That was also super helpful. And Claire is actually one of the counsellors who's available on our free BCFNZ counselling scheme. She's Auckland-based, but that counselling is available throughout New Zealand, and we'll have some information up shortly about how to go about getting a referral to that from our nurses. Right, we're going to move on to, actually let me just say thanks to all 3 of you. You've all been wonderful tonight, but now is the chance for other people to ask a question or make a comment or give us your sort of tips and things as well. So if you want to enter some questions in the chat box, do go ahead, and we'll just start working through that. So I had a question actually just based on Claire's comments about starting to date again and get into a new relationship. And of course, Maddie, you've been through that. Was that a big thing?
Yeah, it is a big thing. So I think for me is I didn't push myself to do anything. It just organically happened when I was ready. You know, that took a long time after my first relationship broke up before, you know, the journey was all about finding myself and finding comfort in myself and getting confidence in myself. I wasn't even thinking of relationships, and I find that's when the time it happened. That's when I met someone, when I was so comfortable in how much I had grown and what my values, you know, what my values were. That then I met someone else and just started chatting of similar values, and it's the communication, and it's kind of telling your journey and telling your story, and someone who really wants to be with you, really admires and respects everything that you've been through. So I think that goes a long way in terms of that. And then yeah, physically, the other side of it, yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody's going to be completely confident the first time they meet someone new. Yeah. So yeah, that again, that is it's not pushing yourself to do anything. So you do it at your own time and your own comfort. And so, you know, you kind of talk to them, tell them about what you are and not comfortable with, and slowly at your own time. Yeah, building the trust. It's all about building trust.
Yeah. So Claire, Maddie obviously had that really difficult situation of her marriage ending. Do you think, is there a particular time along that treatment pathway that's a bigger risk period or a bigger strain for relationships, do you think?
Probably post-treatment, when everything settles down and the immediate crisis is over. And as Maddie said, that experience takes a huge toll, and it can make you both look at fundamentally the meaning of life and what you want out of life. And you can actually move into being different people after that experience, and wanting different things in life. So communication is very important right from the start, but the really risky part is when things have settled down.
Yeah. Kind of gone, yay, we got through it, and then, oops, yeah. Judith, you were talking about employee assistance programs. Is that only in large companies, or how does that work?
So a lot of organisations have them, large and small. It's a really great service that organisations offer. So I found it in few companies that I work with, 50 people or less, they put in employee assistance programs. They're very reasonable for employers to put in place. They're not hugely costly, so that's why they're there. And it's something that's, I would say, reasonably expensive for organisations over 20 or 30 people, I would say.
And what if your boss or your co-workers are maybe asking more questions than you want to answer, if it starts to feel a bit nosy or intrusive?
Yeah. So you don't have to say anything. I mean, there's no requirement on you. Your privacy is yours. So, you don't have to explain the details of your medical situation. If you're away from work, obviously you have to provide a medical certificate. But apart from that, you don't have to say anything. I think that a lot of the people I've worked with have found it better to be transparent with their boss and close working colleagues, just so that they can be supportive of them as they go through all these different experiences of mental and physical health. So, but yeah, if you don't want to tell people, you don't have to.
And if you decide to get a new job, and so what do you have to tell new employers about your health or your experience?
Again, as long as your health as it stands doesn't affect the job that you've applied to do, so you're physically fit to do that job, then you don't have to declare anything. For example, if you were wanting to work in a warehouse and you needed to lift heavy boxes, but due to your surgery or something you couldn't do that anymore, then that would have an implication. You'd need to declare that. But apart from that, no, you can keep it private to yourself. You don't have to share it.
And of course, people tend to be having follow-up appointments and so on, but they'll just do that with sick leave and so on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And if you're off work and it's been agreed that you're going to take unpaid time off work, you still accrue leave during that period. So you don't. So you'll be gaining sick leave as you go. That's another. You'll be getting annual leave as you go. So that's another thing that you can think about.
And Maddie, did you find that your friends, how understanding were they of what you were going through?
I mean, everybody found it very shocking. So I think initially, like myself, just didn't kind of accept it to start with. And I think because, nobody else in my circles had been through something similar, it was quite new. So I think it did scare people a bit. People started becoming a lot more conscious, of checking my own breath. Oh my gosh, does this really happen when, you're this age? But my friends are all very supportive. And so, and people would always offer to do things, but a lot of the time I just needed time by myself and just needed time to rest. And I kind of, felt like, I'm going off the grid for a while, and, I'm not going to be around and socializing and all of that. And that's something that I just, again, communication, that I had to communicate to my friends that about my energy levels and my fatigue, and that I'm not going to be out and about so much. But everyone was really understanding, and it really did, trauma does actually bring people closer together. I think it really can be special in a way like that. It's like you've got this kind of deeper connection, and I found that, my friendships and just like my relationship with my sister and things like that really, really blossomed.
Yeah. And Claire talked about support groups. Have you found those helpful? I
found yoga. So that, I guess, that would be my support group. So not necessarily a support group for young women going through breast cancer. It was the yoga community and finding like-minded individuals, which really supported me and nourished me.
Great. I'll take this chance to plug our own support group, our MyBC app, which I think has already been mentioned and you'll see more information about later, which is an online virtual community for anyone who has breast cancer and also for their supporters and so on. And on there we do have a subgroup of younger women that you can join, so that may be really helpful. That also provides access to our breast care nurse as well as discussion topics and so on. It's been very popular, and so if you'd like to get on there and just see what's going on, you can find that at the App Store, the Android Play Store, or the Apple Store as well. Claire, we find with our counselling service that people are often slow to take up counselling and maybe is there a good time, and would you encourage people to go sooner, or how do you make the decision about when you need to see someone?
That's a really good point, and most of the ladies I see, again, it can quite often be post-treatment when life's settling down a wee bit. But it's really when it feels right to you, or if it feels right for you, that it might be that you just want to go and have a one-off chat with a counsellor because you may not know how to communicate the best way with your teenager, or maybe having communication challenges in your relationship. But it's really when it feels right to you, and if it does, when women come for ongoing counselling, for that kind of support and working through whatever's bothering them, whether it is body image or relationship, fear, anxiety, or it might just be a one-off, I need to vent, or what shall I do about this? So, counselling there for that one-off or longer-term help as well.
And Judith, we've talked about retraining and doing new things and perhaps finding something that suits your values, but I guess not everyone has the luxury of doing that. Some people just have to, maybe due to their geographic location or their financial circumstances, just don't have much choice about going back to the grind, the daily grind. Have you got any sort of thoughts about making the best out of that, or how you can, make that a bit more palatable?
Oh, that's a...
And maybe, Claire, maybe you would tip in on that one too, because, not everyone has choices.
No, that's right. The financial considerations are,
if you're a solo mum, say, and you've got young children, you just have to get out there and back to that 9 to 5.
I guess would come back to the fact that if your employer is a good employer and is reasonably compassionate and understanding, they might be able to help you step back into work rather than just go bang straight into a full-time job if that's what you were doing. So if that's suitable, obviously different types of work allow for those sort of things, and I would be really encouraging you to talk about flexible work options with your employer so that you don't have to hit the ground full-time once you're well. That might give you a chance to adjust and adapt and deal with the emotional side of things, as well as being tired and exhausted as you get back into doing full-time work. And I just think it's that close relationship with your boss and your workmates. As Maddie says, you can develop much closer relationships having gone through this, and allow that, if you've got good friendships at work, allow that to blossom, to provide that support, and I just take care of yourself, just put you first, and do what you have to do for work, but just remember it's all about you, and to do for work, but just remember it's all about you, and don't let work and the grind of work become stressful to you, and that seek counselling help if it does, but your number one priority is you until such time as you want to move on and say, yeah, I'm done and I'm over this. I think you just take care of yourself.
And Claire, what do you think are the tips for dealing with something you just have to do?
Yes, that can be difficult, and as Judith was saying, it is communicating with your employer as much as you can if you're able to, and hopefully, you do have a good employer that you can talk to and look at returning to work slowly if that's what you're wanting. Also looking at what other roles may be available within the organisation, whether the transfer available or a different type of role, or something that you're more interested in doing. It's having those conversations with your employer. And for those people that have to go back to work and have to earn a living, and fortunately in my role I do hear from my clients that not all employers are as supportive as they could be or maybe should be. It may make you consider where you want to be and who you want to be around all day, every day, and how you want to spend your time. So again, that's where counselling can help you identify where you do want to be and what's going to work for you now. Now you have these new experiences.
And Judith, if you are making a career change, I think we've talked about aligning your values with something else, but in terms of sort of maybe practically figuring out a career, if nothing springs to mind, are there some ways you can?
Yeah, so there's great resources online around identifying, the right job for you. Some wonderful quizzes and surveys you can do where you just write down all the things that you really like, and they evaluate that and then give you options around the sort of career that would be right for you based on that. So encourage you to do that. If you've got a little bit of money or your employer it wants to help you, you might be able to access some career coaches. So there are wonderful services available in New Zealand with professional career coaches that can provide you with that one-on-one counselling if you want to change your career. Again, they'll survey you, diagnose with you what's the best thing for you, and then give you some really good tricks and tips. And then obviously if you wanted to start interviewing and doing those sort of things, they can help you with those sort of interviewing skills as well. So yeah, definitely plenty of resources around to support people who want to change.
Right. Thank you. And so Maddie, how did you decide on yoga as your career?
I think, so what the first seed for me was actually, I was going to a class called Wellness Wednesdays, which was a lady, Rebecca Wadey, who was also diagnosed with breast cancer at 26, and she set up the centre, which was a yoga centre. And I was going along to the Wellness Wednesday classes for, people who had illness or cancer. And it was one of the teachers there who kind of dropped the idea in my head that you should look at doing your yoga teacher training. And that was, a few years ago now. And then, because originally I was working in the film industry before, and in casting before my diagnosis. And then after the diagnosis, I wanted to change, career completely because I found the film industry was very stressful, very stressful type of work with all sorts of ridiculous hours and things like that. And then I went into public relations, but even that, it just didn't really resonate with what I really wanted to do. And I think the whole diagnosis just changed, my philosophy and my ideas on life so much that I wanted to do something which was really nourishing both for myself, but also something that I could then give back to other people. And yoga was that for me, being able to help people the way that yoga helped me and helped me through my journey and through my recovery.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Right. Judith, do you have any specific resources, those quizzes and things that you recommend, or maybe we could, maybe when we...
I think that the Career Association of New Zealand website is the place to go. So that's CANZ. They would probably be the best place to start with, and then they can you can go from there to see what other places they direct you to.
Great, I didn't even know there was a Career Association of New Zealand. That's interesting. Okay, thank you for that. Right, I think that's it from us tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed talking to you.
Definitely.
When you leave the webinar, there'll be an exit questionnaire. We'd really appreciate if you could take a minute to fill that out, just to give us your thoughts. If you have any questions about this webinar, what you've heard tonight, or you'd like to talk to a nurse, then our nurses are available tomorrow on our 0800 BC nurse line. That number should be up on your screen. They can provide referrals to our counsellors, including Claire, and also funded rehabilitation programs if you're needing some physical recovery after surgery. They can help you connect into this MyBC app and just generally answer any sort of questions about your follow-up to breast cancer treatment and so on. In a few days, we'll send you a link to a recording of the webinar if you'd like to watch it again, or if you'd like to share it with anyone else. Thank you again for joining us, and good night.
Thank you. See you. Bye.